Life and death walk hand in hand always. So in order to have one, there must be the other, is what all of these stories say, every single story, because that's where it began. Hey everybody, welcome into Folklore and Flourish. You're here with Jane and Mark over at Blue Box 29. Today is February 15th, so we are at the start of a brand new week. With it being the start of a brand new week, we are looking back at what is February. February is the month of sacred bonds and the beloved and the binder. Our themes all month are soul recognition, devotion and loyalty, longing and loss, betrayal and forgiveness, sacred union, love beyond death, commitment, and emotional resurrection. So those are our February themes. We are now moving into week 3, love lost and found. So we're kicking off week 3, love lost and found, with the separation. So February 15th is the separation. The theme is love pulled apart. We're going to look at 4 stories today. We're going to look at Egyptian, Greek, Japanese, and another Greek. We've seen every single one of these characters before. So now we are just focusing on the separation. So enjoy these 4 stories. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1, Isis and Osiris. In the ancient land of Kemet, which we now call Egypt, love was not imagined as fragile. It was cosmic. It held together rivers, stars, and kingship itself. Osiris, son of the sky goddess Nut, and the earth god Geb, ruled Egypt with justice and wisdom. He taught humanity how to cultivate grain, how to honor the gods, and how to live not by violence, but by order. That sacred order was called Ma'at, the balance between chaos and harmony. At his side stood Isis, his sister and wife. She was not merely consort, but equal in power. Isis understood magic, speech, and the secret names of things. Where Osiris governed openly, she worked in hidden ways. Together they formed a union of balance, authority and wisdom, law and intuition. But harmony rarely rests unchallenged. Osiris had a brother named Set, lord of storms and disorder. Set watched Osiris's region grow strong. He saw the people praise him. He saw Isis beside him. And in that watching, jealousy ripened into violence. Set devised a plan. He crafted a magnificent chest, carved to the precise measurements of Osiris's body. It was adorned with cedar and gold. During a feast, Set presented it as a gift and proposed a game. Whoever fit perfectly inside the chest would claim it as their own. One by one, the guests lay inside. None fit. When Osiris reclined within it, the chest embraced him exactly. Before he could rise, Set and his allies slammed the lid shut, sealed it with molten lead, and cast it into the Nile. Thus, love was torn from itself. The river carried the chest northward. It drifted beyond Egypt's borders, beyond familiarity, until it lodged within a tamarisk tree in the land of Byblos. The tree grew around it, enclosing it within living wood. Back in Egypt, Isis felt the rupture. In Egyptian belief, love was not sentimental attachment. It was life force. When Osiris was cast into darkness, something in the land trembled. Isis did not collapse into despair. She began to search. Disguised, traveling alone, she crossed marshes and deserts. She asked fishermen. She listened to wind. She followed rumor and dream. Her grief became motion. In Byblos, the tamarisk tree containing the chest was cut down and fashioned into a pillar in the palace of the king. Isis arrived there as a nursemaid in disguise. Through patience and quiet endurance, she won the trust of the queen. When the time came, she revealed herself in divine form and requested the pillar. Inside it lay the chest. Inside the chest lay Osiris. She brought him back to Egypt. For a moment, love was restored. But Set discovered the body. In fury, he tore Osiris into 14 pieces and scattered them across the land. Separation deepened, yet Isis did not surrender. With her sister, Nephthys, she gathered the fragments. Piece by piece, she searched the riverbanks and deserts. Each recovered part restored dignity. Each act of retrieval defied annihilation. Only one piece could not be found. Through sacred magic and devotion, Isis reassembled Osiris's body. She wrapped him in linen, spoke words of power, and breathed life into him long enough to conceive their son, Horus. Osiris would not return to earthly kingship. Instead, he became ruler of the Duat, the underworld. He presided over judgment and rebirth. Love did not resume as it had been. It transformed. Isis raised Horus in hiding, protecting him from Set until he was strong enough to reclaim balance. Through her endurance, Ma was restored. In Egyptian understanding, separation is not the end of love. It is the passage through which love becomes eternal. Osiris's death and resurrection mirrored the flood of the Nile. The river receded and returned. Grain died and rose again. Distance revealed value. Loss deepened reverence. Isis teaches that love does not abandon what is torn apart. It searches, it gathers, it remembers. And sometimes it learns to love in a new realm entirely. Story 2, Demeter and Persephone. In Greek tradition, separation is not merely emotional. It reshapes the earth itself. Demeter, goddess of grain and harvest, governed fertility, soil, and the sustaining rhythms of growth. Where she walked, wheat rose. Where she blessed, orchards ripened. She was not distant or abstract. She was the warmth in bread, the patience in seed, the quiet assurance that life would return after winter. Her daughter was Persephone, once called Kore, the maiden. She was youth in bloom, spring's first green. If Demeter was nourishment, Persephone was promise. One day, Persephone wandered in the meadow with the daughters of Oceanus. Flowers rose beneath her hands: narcissus, crocus, hyacinth. Then she saw a bloom unlike the others, radiant and rare. As she reached for it, the earth split open. From the chasm surged Hades, lord of the underworld, in a chariot drawn by immortal horses. He seized Persephone and descended back into the earth. The ground closed, the meadow fell silent. Demeter heard her daughter's cry. In the days that followed, Demeter did not rest. She lit torches from Mount Etna and searched across land and sea. She asked gods and mortals. She called Persephone's name into valleys and across cliffs. None answered. Grief does not always collapse inward. Sometimes it withdraws its blessing. As Demeter searched, the earth began to wither. Grain refused to sprout. Fruit blackened on the branch. Fields turned to dust. Humanity, dependent upon her favor, began to starve. Zeus, king of the gods, watched famine spread. He had permitted the marriage of Persephone to Hades, believing alliance between realms was necessary. But he had not reckoned with a mother's grief. Finally, the sun god Helios, who sees all things, revealed the truth to Demeter. She did not weep before Zeus. She withdrew. Demeter disguised herself as an old woman and wandered to Eleusis, for whom she served as nurse to the infant prince, Demephon. Each night she placed the child in the hearth fire to burn away mortality and grant him immortality. When the queen interrupted in fear, the transformation was broken. Demeter revealed her divine form and demanded a temple be built in her honor. Within it she sat, withholding her gifts from the earth. No grain grew, no seed quickened. Humanity faltered. Separation had become cosmic. Zeus, recognizing the peril, sent Hermes, messenger of the gods, to the underworld to retrieve Persephone. Hades agreed, but not without condition. Before she left, Persephone ate 6 seeds of a pomegranate. In Greek thought, to eat in the realm of the dead binds one to it. When Persephone returned to Demeter, the reunion shook the heavens. Grain burst upward, blossoms opened, light warmed the soil. But the pomegranate seeds carried consequence. For part of each year, Persephone must return to Hades. For part of each year, Demeter must endure absence. Thus the seasons were born. When Persephone ascends, spring and summer flourish. When she descends, autumn wanes into winter. Greek tradition does not portray this as simple tragedy. It is a rhythm. Love pulled apart creates movement. Demeter learns that separation does not erase bond. Persephone learns that descent does not cancel identity. She becomes queen of the underworld, no longer only maiden. Distance reshapes both. In Eleusis, rites were established in honor of Demeter and Persephone. The Eleusinian mysteries taught initiates that death itself mirrors this pattern. Descent precedes return. Darkness does not negate life. Separation in this telling becomes teacher. Demeter's grief made visible what had been invisible, the dependence of the world upon maternal devotion. Persephone's absence revealed her value. The pomegranate seeds were small, yet they changed eternity. Love here is not undone by distance. It becomes cyclical, enduring in rhythm rather than permanence. Every winter carries the promise of return. Every spring remembers what was lost. Story 3. Izanagi and Izanami. In early Japanese mythology, love and separation shaped not only hearts, but the islands themselves. Before there was Japan as land, before mountains rose or rivers carved their paths, there was a floating, formless sea beneath the heavens. The gods gathered upon the floating bridge of heaven and entrusted 2 deities with a sacred task. Izanagi, he who invites, and Izanami, she who invites. They were partners. Given a jeweled spear called Amenonu Hoko, they stood upon the bridge and stirred the formless waters below. When they lifted the spear, droplets fell from its tip and hardened into the first island, Onagora. They descended into the new land and built a pillar. There they performed a marriage rite, circling the pillar in opposite directions. When they met again, they spoke vows. But their first attempt at union was flawed, and the child born from it was deformed. The gods instructed them to repeat the rite properly, with Izanagi speaking first. The second time, their union bore fruit. From their joining came the islands of Japan, and from them came mountains, winds, rivers, and gods of nature. Love created geography. Yet creation carries cost. When Izanami gave birth to Kagutsuchi, the god of fire, the flames burned her body. She was grievously wounded and died. Izanagi grieved. He did not accept her absence quietly. Refusing to surrender her to death, he journeyed to Yomi, the land of the dead. Yomi was not fiery torment as in some traditions, but a shadowed realm of decay and stillness. There he called out to Izanami, asking her to return. From the darkness she answered. She told them she had already eaten the food of Yami and could not leave freely. Yet she would plead with the rulers of that realm if he would wait and not look upon her. He agreed. But doubt, impatience, fear entered him. As he waited in darkness, he grew anxious. Had she already forgotten him? Was she changed beyond recognition? He broke his promise. Lighting a comb from his hair as a torch, he looked upon Izanami. He saw not the beloved who had stood beside him at the pillar, but a body in decay, crawling with maggots and thunder deities embedded in her flesh. Death had altered her. Ashamed and enraged at being seen in this state, Izanami cried out. The guardians of Yomi pursued Izanagi as he fled. He hurled fruit and combs behind him to delay them. Finally, he sealed the entrance to Yomi with a great boulder. From the other side, Izanami called to him. You have shamed me. Each day I will claim 1,000 lives. Izanagi answered, Then I will cause 1,500 to be born. Thus, death and birth entered balance. Separation became permanent. Izanagi purified himself in ritual washing after escaping Yami. From the purification were born further deities, including Amaterasu, goddess of the sun. Even in grief, creation continued. Japanese tradition does not soften this ending. Izanagi and Izanami do not reunite. The separation is final. Love here is not cyclical like Demeter's, nor negotiable like Persephone's descent. It is irrevocable. Yet the myth teaches something quiet. Love's value is revealed not only in presence, but in what is risked to retrieve it. Izanagi's descent into Yami mirrors countless human attempts to return to what is lost. His failure reminds us that some distances cannot be reversed. And yet, from the rupture between them, the rhythm of mortality begins. Life does not end with separation, it multiplies. Izanami becomes a goddess of death, ruling Yami. Izanagi becomes a father of light. Their love, once creative, becomes cosmic tension. In this telling, separation is not weakness. It is a turning point in existence itself. Story 4. Hades without Persephone. In Greek myth, love is not always loud. Sometimes it is the silence of a throne left half empty. Hades, son of Cronus and Rhea, was not the god of evil. He was the ruler of the unseen. When the world was divided among the brothers after Titanomachy, Zeus took the sky, Poseidon took the sea, Hades drew the underworld. He did not choose it, he governed it. The realm of the dead was not fire and torment in early Greek understanding. It was shadow. It was quiet. It was inevitability. But it was also lonely. In the Homeric hymn to Demeter, the abduction of Persephone is told largely from Demeter's grief. Yet ancient Greek sources also preserve fragments of another layer. Hades, a sovereign seeking queen, not merely captor seeking possession. Marriage alliances among gods were rarely rooted in romance. They were cosmic arrangements. Zeus permitted the union. In archaic thought, Hades did not steal without sanction. He claimed what was allotted. Persephone descended, and in her descent, the underworld changed. Before her arrival, Hades ruled alone among shades. The dead passed before him silently. No growth stirred. No transformation marked the halls of Asphodel. Persephone brought presence. She did not remain maiden for long. In later Greek tradition, she becomes Despoina, the mistress, sovereign beside Hades. She listens to petitions. She intervenes in myths such as Orpheus and Psyche. She tempers judgment. In many Orphic traditions, Persephone is not passive but powerful, linked to rebirth and mystery rites. The separation defines their union. When Hermes retrieves Persephone at Zeus's command, Hades does not protest violently. He offers her the pomegranate seeds. In Greek symbolism, the pomegranate binds through shared substance. Eating in a realm implies belonging to it. Some later interpretations portray this as manipulation. Others view it as acknowledgement. Persephone cannot fully abandon the world she has entered. When she ascends each spring, the underworld shifts. Hades remains. The throne beside him is empty. The souls still arrive. The judges still weigh deeds, but the air alters. In poetic imagination, the underworld grows stiller in her absence. Greek tragedy often explores what rulers endure in silence. Hades rarely appears in dramatic lament, yet absence surrounds him. He does not chase her back. He does not rage against Zeus. He accepts the rhythm imposed. For part of the year, Persephone returns to Demeter. Fields bloom, light stretches longer. For part of the year, she descends again. Autumn marks her approach. Winter marks her presence. From Hades' vantage, separation is cyclical. He rules in continuity, yet his companionship is seasonal. Greek cosmology is built on balance. The living need harvest. The dead need order. Persephone bridges both. When she is gone, Hades governs alone. When she returns, the underworld becomes court rather than tomb. This is not romance shaped by sentiment. It is sobriety shaped by necessity. In some philosophical interpretations from later antiquity, Hades represents stability. Persephone represents transition. Without her movement, the cosmos would stagnate. Without his steadiness, it would collapse. Thus, separation becomes structural. Hades' love is not displayed in lyric grief like Orpheus. It is embedded in endurance. He keeps the realm intact whether she stands beside him or not. Greek myth rarely frames this as tyrant. Instead, he is inevitable. And perhaps that is the quietest form of mourning. He cannot leave his kingdom to follow her. He cannot join her in sunlight. He waits. Each descent is reunion. Each ascent is relinquishment. The myth does not ask us to approve of the abduction. It asks us to understand consequence. Persephone becomes queen because she dwells in shadow. Hades becomes partner because he shares rule. But neither escapes the structure Zeus ordained. Separation defies them as much as union does. For the Greeks, love in this myth is not possession nor freedom. It is accommodation within cosmic order. When Persephone leaves, flowers bloom above. When she returns, roots sleep below. Hades remains constant, and consistency, too, is a form of longing. Hey everybody, welcome back in. Hope you enjoyed those 4 stories. Maybe not, since they're a little bit sadder about the separation from our loved ones. So with those 4 stories, the lesson was that distance teaches value. So the daily thread for today is that across these traditions, love does not vanish when divided. Isis searches across broken land to gather what was torn apart. Demeter lets the earth wither rather than forget her child. Izanagi descends into shadow to retrieve what death has claimed. Persephone moves between worlds, binding light and darkness together. Each story teaches that distance is not the opposite of love. It is the space where love proves its weight. So, jumping right into story 1, Isis and Osiris. So, like I said, we've heard all of these stories before. The first one
was a little more in depth, though, compared to what I've heard before. I don't remember hearing him having all the people climb in the box. I don't remember that.
I mean,
or did it?
Yeah, that's always been a thing, yeah. But this one went a little bit more into depth about the parameters of it. So in Egyptian cosmology, separation is never meaningless. It serves transformation, renewal, and cosmic balance. So some cultural context that it says with this story is that Isis and Osiris form one of the central myths of ancient Egyptian religion. Their story explains kingship, death, rebirth, and agricultural cycles tied to the Nile. So him being thrown into the Nile, growing from it. Yeah, this one is the first time we see her throughout her journey of trying to find him. How she was very wise, but even as a goddess, she didn't just come in storming in like demanding answers. She earned everyone's trust and gained him back, and then showed her true self. So it was kind of like those people were probably rewarded with something, even just being able to see her in her form. But then she got him, and then they're separated again. When he's cut up, she finds him. He goes to be in the underworld after that because she couldn't restore everything. You know, not everything can be
Right. Yeah,
brought
so
back.
he had to go to the underworld.
Yeah. This is the first time, though, that she breathed life in him long enough to conceive their son after he was torn apart, but his reproductive organs were the thing that they couldn't find. But they're also like deities, so.
They're gods, so.
This is the first time I've ever heard that Horus was born after Osiris was torn to pieces. That's interesting. And that kind of reminds me of Rhea and Cronus with Zeus. How Rhea hid Zeus from Cronus until he was big enough to come back and restore order. But this one, it was against Set, his uncle. So there's that too. Lots of those similar themes of how that monarchies were. You would kill your brother for the throne. Oh, well, we hope we wouldn't, but that was happening. Nephews, uncles, you know, daughters, queens, everyone dying for power. I actually skipped to the third one because I really want to do story 2 and 4 together because they're both centered around Persephone.
Okay.
So story 3, Izanagi and Izanami. We've seen this one before. This one went more into how powerful their love was at the beginning. So how their love created the Japanese islands or Japan and all of that stuff. And then he was refusing to surrender her to death. He didn't want to surrender her to death. This is someone that you said, you know, we were talking about the cycles, which will be the next stories we talk about. This was the story of when the bridge, when that veil was created, that door was created to separate the living from the dead. But this one is the story of why we can't see our dead anymore. There is something separating them. And it was because when he went down there, saw her for what she was, covered in maggots, and so he's like, ew, no, gets freaked out, runs off, and then closes the door. And because he closed that forever, there's that resentment, that grudge they hold on to forever. So one's constantly taking life and the other's constantly giving life in this cycle. It's interesting that he, though, said and threatened more births than deaths every day.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
That just
That's an imbalance.
Yeah, there is that imbalance again. So he tipped the scales again. So he set in motion quite a number of things, actually. Interesting. This one,
Overpopulation, his fault.
the important note in Japanese mythology is that separation does not erase bond. It marks a boundary between life and death and establishes the balance that sustains the world. Maybe that is balance then. Maybe there needs more life than death to be balanced. Maybe that is something. But so it got some more cultural context.
You know what? Maybe because the population needs to get so big before, you know, the next catastrophe. Unfortunately, things happen, you know, volcanoes erupt. Things allegedly come from the sky place, whatever you want to think of it as. Sky, whatever.
The oceans above.
Yeah. What would fall out of there? That would crash into us. That would
I don't know. Fish are probably thinking the same thing, and then some kid comes along and chucks a rock in the water. The fish is like the just devastates them.
a rock.
Yeah.
I don't think
Isn't that what
a fish.
Isn't that what took out the dinosaurs?
A rock?
A space rock
Well, yeah, but
from the oceans above.
right. But
So God or whatever is up there was just like saw the dinosaurs, thought like that.
Well, yeah, because they weren't just dinosaurs, they were reptilians. But then they got smart and they went underground.
And then transformed into human lizard people.
Yeah.
That Hecklefish talks about.
Yeah.
Lizard people.
Yes. See, she knows, she agrees. Cats are smart.
Molly really likes hecklefish.
She does like hecklefish.
She always licks her lips when she's looking at it.
Do you want to eat hecklefish? Anyways,
no, she wants to dance with the fish.
Do you want to dance with the fish? She's out of here. Okay, will you leave us alone now?
Okay, so the cultural context, a little more behind this, is that the story of Izanagi and Izanami appear in the foundational texts of Shinto mythology, describing the divine origins of Japan. So the underworld or the land of the living and the land of the dead are always, the origin stories are always like the beginning of time. Life and death walk hand in hand always. So in order to have one, there must be the other, is what all of these stories say, every single story, because that's where it began. In the creation of these beings and then places, the land of the living and the land of the dead. Okay, now moving into story 2 and 4. So story 2, we see Demeter's side, her grief. So how the world grieves, that is the fall and winter. So fall and winter are when we are grieving because Persephone is gone. So the goddess of the grain, the goddess of growth, she kind of retreats back into herself for that time. Talking about how separation does not destroy love. It transforms it into rhythm, return, and enduring bond. Kind of that cycle within love, that there are hard times. There are seasons that are difficult. And yeah, it is kind of around that fall, winter time, because yeah, the holidays are here, but the holidays come with a lot of stress. They can come with a lot of stress. And I think that's what we've talked about and how we want to change what we do.
Right.
Like being more about time and like the gifts are fine, stockings, love the stockings, but like playing games, watching movies, baking, cooking with each other, but going on trips.
Yeah.
Like just spending time, where that's what we're doing. And that's what, we get so stressed about too, is just spending that time with people. And because it will be gone. So during these winter months, when Demeter is grieving for Persephone, missing her, that's when we're all giving thanks, because we know that we see the death out in the world, right? We see that it's barely holding on. And we know that that kind of is a reflection of us when we're mourning and grieving, I think.
Right.
The cultural context of this one is that the myth of Demeter and Persephone explains the agricultural cycle and formed the foundation of the Eleusinian mysteries, one of the most significant religious rites in ancient Greece. Yeah, I believe that the harvest festivals have always been very big in all cultures. I mean, that's why we have Halloween. They used to mark the major festival or harvesting time.
Right.
And so did Greece. I mean, they did it then too. And it was, again, in honor of them, Demeter and Persephone. But then we go down and we see the flip side, because yes, the mother is missing and grieving, but now Hades, we get to see Hades. I really enjoy how it talks about the historical perspective. It wasn't an abduction. That's not what we're focused on, Hades got permission during the time. That's what he needed.
Yes.
So he did what needed to be done and then claimed what was his. We're not looking at right or wrong. That's just how it was. And so he got that. And I like that it was started with, she was like the maiden, new, frightened, scared down there. But then she became the queen. She stepped into her right. So this, when we look at how Hades took her, kind of that transition, forced transition, but then she adapted to it. And then she allowed it to become her identity. She chose it as her identity, for half of the time. And she understood that she was needed in both life and death for both to function. She's such a hugely important concept, right? Because when she steps up to the earth, she's the daughter of harvest. She's that light. You know how I've said to you before, yeah, I want to be a queen, but to be the princess is like way less pressure. You kind of get to play a little bit more to be the king or the next in line versus the secondborn. The secondborn kind of has freedom. They get more of their choice. That's what Persephone is on the top. Less stress, less, hands on the reins. Where when she goes down below, she steps into her leadership, her role in keeping Hades where he's at and helping souls.
Wow.
Right, we see that she's a participant when people go down there. I think that there's respect there between her and Hades, because it doesn't talk about, and I could be completely wrong, I haven't looked too much into Hades himself, but it doesn't ever talk about Hades having other women there. You know how Zeus and Poseidon are always kind of, they find something they want and they take it. Zeus did that with Persephone, but he did it through their customs. And he never filled the throne when she was away. He never got someone that could stay long term. That's what he had, and that's what he wanted. And it sustained, it tolerated it through the spring and the summer. And then she came back. And so it's like the first one we see her leaving a mother. Then the second one, she's leaving her partner.
Right.
So both are pains that have to be acknowledged for everyone, because it's not just the cycles and the seasons, but the transition of growing up and being with your partner. You do kind of you distance yourself from your family, not as like a bad thing or anything, but just your time is prioritized differently. You have less time because you're giving it to your partner and your new family, and that's something that's hard too. But there are seasons where we get to be together and let's enjoy it. Let's live, and that's what they do, is they live fully in it. Right.
Yeah.
So it's Persephone comes up and the life automatically wakes up. It's like that springtime, scene where all of a sudden the next morning, everything's just waking up and all the flowers have bloomed. And that's what it is. And then when all the colors change, that's when she's leaving. And when they fall is when she's gone, kind of thing. Or maybe it's before, but
Right.
This one, the important note is that separation is reciprocal. So with Hades too endures absence. Love here is structured by rhythm, presence and departure sustaining both the living world and the realm below. I like how this made me think of like men that have gone off to war. And we see the images of women like missing their husbands while they're away and stuff. And to think that it's like that the other way too. Right? So there's separation is both ways. It's not like you're with guys out fighting or you're with people at work. No, we're still separated from each other. It has no influence on who else is around.
Right.
They can distract us. They can keep our mind focused on something else. But this kind of allows us to acknowledge that separation is still there. They just endure it. They focus on where they're at so that when they're there, they can focus on that. Because ultimately, if I'm so focused on when you're away that I don't do anything when you're away, we're only going to be catching up on all the stuff I haven't done when you're here.
Right.
So I can't focus on you.
Right.
So that's something too, is they're allowed to kind of feel it and to be in pain with it, but to just, you don't have to push through every day. Go, 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 go. Some days are way slower. Some days, you know what, I am going to sit down. I'm going to just kind of.
Like here where we live, it's more of a bipolar weather. So it's like here you can tell like they freak out a lot more. But there's other places where it just doesn't affect them at all.
Right.
But here, for sure, daily. And it's their fault, in my opinion, that we have wintertime. Like
I
if
like
they
the winter
wouldn't-
though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
Still their fault though.
The later adaptations have her rising as the queen, like rising into that role, where the earlier versions of all these stories really focus on just her being taken and nothing beyond that. But, and the seasons, obviously. But yeah, I like how the later myths kind of expanded and playwrights expanded on her stepping into her role as a queen.
But the original is really not her, not that part of the story.
It just never went into detail about it. You know, there weren't expansions beyond it, you know.
Yeah.
But I could dig for it. I've found in some of my later book or early books too. She is 40. Okay. But the lesson here is that distance teaches value, right? So we're focused on the separation and love pulled apart. So the lesson is that distance teaches value. So looking at those 4 stories, we're going to reflect on who have I lost but still love. So who is someone that I lost but still love? And that's why I think with the seasons and missing Persephone on both sides, they could make it when she was gone. Because that distance didn't take away the love. It was still there on both accounts. So I don't need to worry about, oh, does she still love me? Is she going to come back? It's there. It's going to happen. That love is there. So that's something too. So who have I lost but still love? So today, another quiet meditation kind of focus. We're going to sit quietly and allow one memory of someone you miss, someone we miss, right? So sit quietly and allow one memory of someone you miss to surface without resisting it. So we're going to sit quietly, close our eyes, and just allow that memory to surface. And we're not going to resist it. We're not going to dismiss it. We're just going to acknowledge it, accept it, and kind of move forward. And then the final thought for today is that distance teaches the true weight of attachment. So distance teaches us what we truly are attached to, what we truly do love. Well, thank you guys for joining us on Folklore and Flourish. Today was February 15th. Remember, we are at the separation today. It's the beginning of love being lost, but don't worry, it will be found in the end for some of us. So join us tomorrow for a brand new day.
See you
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Love you.